Did you ever pine for the good old days when computers had character? I mean, these days we've got flashy RGB and tempered glass, but is it not all the same standardized parts and standardized operating systems running off a standardized box? Maybe it isn't. Mack Weldon makes great underwear, t-shirts, socks, wallets, and more. They believe in simple shopping, and if you use code TECHTIPS, you'll even get less expensive shopping with 20% off. You'll find the link below. For those of you who don't recognize it, this is actually a one-to-one design copy of the original Apple II, the Steve Wozniak designed machine that was ubiquitous in the United States in the 80s and 90s. To give you a bit of context for how important this computer was, the Apple II was produced for over 17 years, starting in 1977, meaning that this may well have been the first computer for a literal entire generation of students during that time. So, the successful funding of Xiaofei Wang's Indiegogo campaign to revive it as a modern, full ATX computer case shouldn't raise too many eyebrows. But is this thing any good? Well, why don't we take a quick tour of it? Our unit is a prototype made primarily from 3D printed resin, but it has all of the features that are going to go into the final design, the most prominent of which being an integrated 68-key Poker Cherry MX Blue keyboard, which looks satisfyingly authentic, but I do have to ask, was anybody really asking for the elevated keyboard design to make a comeback here? Fortunately, you don't have to use it. Just do that. So let's move on then. We've got a power button and a actually somewhat difficult to reach front USB 3 and headset jack set on the lower right here. And then just like on the original, on the top, we've got this removable panel giving us a look, there we go, under the literal hood of the chassis itself. So in here, we find 6 60mm fans for exhaust along this side and this side. And then we've got 2 120mm fans over here as intake, which I would think should be more than adequate. Getting it open right up here, hardware compatibility is a bit of a mixed bag though. So we've got full ATX support for our motherboard. Here, you can see that here, the length is right, but we're confined to small form factor territory for expansion. So that means a single dual slot opening on the rear for our GPU, and then just 2 2.5-inch drive mounts, which on this revision of the design are mounted right here directly under the keyboard. Cooler clearance is another consideration for this case. It's got 82mm of total clearance, and yet another thing to keep in mind, it supports only SFX, not SFXL power supplies, meaning that the best that we can cram in there is a Corsair SF600 or a Silverstone SX600. So installing the motherboard is pretty straightforward. We just need to remove this cable management shroud at the bottom right of where the board goes. And our Ryzen test bench, complete with a Noctua low profile cooler with a 92mm fan on the bottom, should slot in a little something like Shalamo. You've got an extra standoff in here, Anthony. That's like Intel boards only. When's the last time anybody put one of those in? Well, it's okay, as long as the board didn't die.
Depending on who you ask, it's been too long.
Dang it. As long as A Prime doesn't edit this, that probably won't make it into the video. For the power supply, we ran into a small issue though. In the default configuration, which would have had it mounted like this, using this grill right here as an intake for the power supply, our power connector coming out the back was gonna interfere with our RAM slot. See, Now, one remedy would be to use a right angle connector, but honestly, we thought it made more sense to just carve out this little area in the bracket right here so that we could mount the power supply the other way around. This gives it lots of clearance. Something that I'm sure will be fixed by the time you guys deal with it is the weird coloring for the front wires. This is the kind of stuff we deal with when it comes to early units sometimes. It's like white, black, and red, yellow, and then which one's positive, negative? It's kind of just flip a coin. Moving on to the GPU, to keep the form factor low profile enough to maintain the original computer's dimensions, we needed a PCI Express riser for our graphics card. This is another thing that I would like to see improved in the final design. Right now, it just kind of sits here. So you kind of slot the bottom of the card in over here, which doesn't fit spectacularly well. Then at the back, you've just got this like two pieces that you gotta kind of screw together to clamp it on there kind of thing. And it just kind of hangs there, but maybe they can do some work on that later. I mean, overall though, looking at it, the layout's not bad. Let's get it wired up. I don't know what they were thinking with this cable shroud. What's the point of it?
Maybe it's supposed to support the GPU.
Oh. I think that makes sense, yeah. Got to install our SSD. We actually had to remove this mount because we had trouble closing the case with it in place, but you know, there's still time to fix those kinds of things in future hardware revisions. Okay, this wire is a problem. Ow. That'll reach. Oh, just about lost my screwdriver bit in there. Okay, powering it on. As expected with the 60mm fans, it is a little noisier than I'd like. And that is even without the included fan controller that made them louder than just using splitters and then headers off the motherboard. So let's get a stress test fired up. In summary, building in this thing is a lot easier than finding and then modding an old Apple II for modern hardware, but it's still kind of a pain. And as expected, the 60mm fans combined with the authentic but not super effective slot design back here means that pretty much as soon as you start up a 3D load, you're going to be generating a fair bit of noise. So for cooling, our CPU hit 74 to 75 degrees under load, so you can expect to see a little bit of boost. But our GPU hit its thermal threshold at 84 degrees and dialed back its boost clocks. Now, considering we're using a low-profile CPU cooler with its 120mm fan removed, this isn't too shabby, but I have seen better results in smaller cases. Which brings us then neatly to the conclusion. If it wasn't clear from the start, let me spell it out for you here. This is a niche product with niche appeal. Absolutely not for everyone. And I guess that's reflected in its small but enthusiastic community that allowed it to be funded over on Indiegogo. The product needs some tweaking before it hits mass production, especially when it comes to ease of use and acoustics. But if you can live with the cost and the compromises, and there will be some, this is definitely one of the most unique PC cases we've ever seen. This video is brought to you by 3 value-oriented Rosewill products. The Cullinan MX tempered glass RGB gaming case features 4 pre-installed fans with adjustable RGB via a remote, including 4 pre-programmed effects. The Nebula GX50 gaming headset features built-in RGB rings on leatherette ear cups and provides strong bass with clear sound positioning. And the Fusion C40 keyboard and mouse combo features vibrant RGB backlit keys, and in the mouse, a switchable up to 4000 DPI optical sensor. This combo is designed for PC gamers as a best bang for the buck RGB bundle, and you can check them out at Newegg or Amazon through the links below. So thanks for watching, guys. If this video sucked, you know what to do, but if it was awesome, get subscribed, hit that like button, or check out the link to where to buy the stuff we featured in the video description. Also linked down there is our merch store, which has cool shirts like this one, and our community forum, which you should totally join.